All right. Well, good evening, everybody. This is Josh Decker. My wife and I, Kim, are very happy to be here with you this evening and to be participating in just helping to educate you and bring you some information about health and wellness and what it is that you can do to increase in your life your purpose. I'm sorry, your wellness, purpose, and abundance. And tonight, what we're going to do, we are going to talk about stress. And I think all of us would love to live a happy life. I have not met a person yet who wouldn't want to live a happy life, but there's something that stands in the way of that for most of us, and that something is, in fact, stress. So we're going to take the next hour or so, and we're going to talk about stress. But before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about why I care about this so much. So for me, I have these two beautiful children in my life. I've got a third on the way. My wife is pregnant, and we're expecting here in January of 2017. For the last 15 years, in my life, I have experienced what most people would call high stress, and that's definitely taken its toll on my life. I remember early on, my wife looking at me as my eyes were twitching, and she could see the stress rising in my life, and saying, "Listen," she told me, she said, "I want you around for the life of our kids." And I kind of blew that off for quite a while. And over the last year or so, I've really started paying more attention to that because I do want to be around for my kids. I want to be a great father for them. But you know what? I also want to be around for my beautiful wife. She does not need to be left high and dry to take care of these children or to be without her companion, which is me. Don't know why she chose me, but she did. And I am happy every day that she did. So that's why I care about this. And so from that, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight. First, we're going to talk a little bit about where stress originated. So we're going to go back and have a little bit of a history lesson. We're also going to talk about what causes it now. We're also going to talk about how the human body reacts to stress. Now, most of us are probably aware of some of this stuff already, but we're going to dig into a little bit of the physiology and chemistry as to what happens when our bodies experience stress. And then what most of us are here for is we're going to learn how to, we're going to talk about how to reduce and deal with stress. And if any of us can learn how to get stress out of our lives, boy, I want you to call me and let's go make a ton of money together, because I don't know a single person who is completely stress-free in their life. And I know I, for one, would love to be, but what we're left with in this world is really learning how to manage the stress that we have, as opposed to getting rid of it entirely. But let's take a step back. Let's talk about where stress came from and what is it. So back in the day, when stress, when our bodies first started experiencing stress, it was well before many of the things that causes stress now. The body's chemistry and stress response was really, it was the fight or flight response. And it originated when we lived in the wild and we had to deal with physical threats. So you can see in this picture, a guy running from a hippo. Now, if that hippo was after me, I would sure be running too. And I've been told that they can run very fast, so I might get caught. But this is where our stress originated from. So we didn't always live in a world that was protected from wild animals, or protected fairly well from each other, for that matter. And so we had this innate sense that was built into us. And I will just set the stage now. I am a Christian. I believe the Bible from the front cover to the back cover. And I hope that doesn't offend you. But for me, what I believe is that God created us with this intricate system. And as I learned more recently about how stress actually works in our bodies and the chemistry behind it, it really is very intricate and integrated. And so it's important to understand that, gosh, our bodies go through something because of what we have experienced before. But in the day and age that we live in now, we don't necessarily have those same stresses. We don't have to worry, most of us, about lions or bears or hippos jumping out and chasing us, or having to defend our life from aggressors of various kinds. Rather, we live in a world that has many other stressors. And so when we think about stressors today, we think about finances and debt, we think about work. There's definitely relationships can be stressors for people. Politics, oh my gosh, and this is an election season. Politics can be a huge stressor. Our health can be stressors. School, whether it's we're in school or maybe our kids are in school, that can be a stress on us. Driving, or perhaps other people's driving. These are just a few of the things that cause us stress in today's world. And what we find is that when we go back in history, they didn't have all these same types of stress. They had to worry about the aggressors. Well, these non-visible aggressors are always on us, right? I don't know if you have debt or not. My wife and I have lived in debt most of the time that we were married or have been married, and thankfully we're on our way out of that. And I praise God every day that we are almost out of debt. But here's the thing, when you have debt, it weighs you down. When you're in a job where you're fearful of having that job tomorrow, or if you know that you're not performing the way that you should, or whatever the situation may be, that feels like a burden on you. When relationships aren't healthy, when politics aren't the way that you'd like them to be, when your health isn't the way that, and it goes on and on. Right? When the person in traffic cuts you off, that's a big stress right away. And we have this constant stress and multiple channels of stress that weigh in on all of us. We live in a very, very stressful world. And see, here's the thing, our body was not designed to live with that much stress all the time. And so we run into some issues, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk for a minute about what the stress reaction is. So when we look at how our bodies actually react to stress, what happens? Well, there's three chemicals that are produced when we when we encounter stress. The first chemical, or hormone rather, is adrenaline, and along with adrenaline is norepinephrine, and some people just call this epinephrine. And both of these chemicals, they're actually very similar hormones in our body, and they're also neurotransmitters because they initiate the body to do other things. We'll talk about that in a second. These are both secreted by the adrenal gland, and this is really what gets us into the fight or flight, right? This it gives us a boost of energy very quickly, and we'll talk about that in a second, why that happens. It also alerts us and awakens us very, very quickly. So this is what, in the immediate moment, this is the thing that takes seconds to get going in our bodies and in our brains. And what happens is these two get us through the immediate danger right this second. But then this next hormone, cortisol, this one actually takes a few minutes to kick in, because there's so many different things that have to happen in the body before cortisol is released. Now, what cortisol does is it actually starts changing your the way your body functions a little bit. So once cortisol is released into the system, your body starts changing. So it starts taking blood away, basically, from non-essential things, and starts shutting down non-essential systems. And when we think about non-essential, we're not talking about non-essential in that our bodies don't need these systems. Really, what we're talking about here is non-essential in that for this moment, for a short period of time, could we do without it? Yes, in order to get past this thing over here. So when we think about, fighting off the bear or fighting off the enemy, right, then what we think about is, do we need our digestive system? Do we need our sex drive? Do we need oh my gosh, now my heart or my mind just went blank. But do we need our immune system or our growth, our pituitary system? Do we need those right this moment when we're dealing with an immediate threat? The answer is no. You can do without all of those for a short period of time. And so cortisol is released into the blood system, and it starts shutting down these non-essential systems for the moment. But what happens is, because we oftentimes live in a state of chronic stress, then we have more cortisol in our system than really what it should, and for longer periods of time. So adrenaline and norepinephrine burn off fairly quickly. You get a burst of adrenaline, and it might take you an hour or two to burn that off, no big deal. Cortisol, on the other hand, is a much slower burn, and it takes up to 72 hours for your body to burn off the cortisol that is produced in just one encounter with stress. Now, think about the number of stressors that you have in your life every day and how much cortisol is now being released into your system. So you have this stuff that takes a long time to burn off, plus you have a lot of it in your system. It becomes very problematic. And all of these are produced by the adrenal glands. And so it's no wonder that we hear more and more stories about people who have adrenal fatigue. And when you start getting adrenal fatigue, you start having other issues. Like a lot of people who have adrenal fatigue also have diabetes because their pancreas isn't releasing the insulin, because the pancreas is actually in part caused by the adrenal system. So all of our hormonal systems, called the endocrine system, it's all connected together. And so when we have one component like the adrenals that isn't working properly because of how much stress we have in our life, we can throw the entire system out of whack. So when we have a stressor in our life, what happens is the liver. So all of these hormones are being released, but here's what else is happening: the liver is releasing some stored blood sugar, and that's what gives us that boost of energy really quick. Along with our heart starts beating faster, we start breathing faster, our eyes dilate. These are all things that happen to bring us more into awareness right this minute. And so when we think about that and we go, gosh, is this really good to be having all the time? The answer is obviously no. And we all know that. We all know that stress is a horrible thing and can really cause us problems. But how much problem can it really cause us? I know up until recently, I didn't realize how many issues stress could cause. And my perspective, I'm 35 years old right now. My perspective was, well, those issues are down the road. I don't have to worry about that right now. And by the time I'm that age, you know what? I won't have any stress in my life. I don't know if any of you out there have had those thoughts or have thought, had that same pattern, but it's a fallacy, because the stress we encounter now takes a toll on our body later. And so we have to deal with that stress now. We have to learn how to deal with that. And so when we think about that, let's actually talk about what the effects of that chronic stress is on our bodies. One of the first things that we see with people who have chronic stress is that they have an increase in free radicals in their system. Now, let's pause there for a minute and explore that. So free radicals, if you're not familiar with it, I would definitely encourage you, go and do some research. Lots and lots of articles to read and books to read on what free radicals do to the system. They're really bad for you. And they're really bad in part because free radicals are actually what help promote cancer in the body. So the more free radicals we have, the more likely we are to get cancer. So if we kind of connect the dots here, the higher my stress level is, the more likely it is I'm going to have cancer. Oh my gosh. So now we really want to pay attention to this and figure out how to bring down our stress levels. But that's not all. In the immediate, stress can cause headaches. I have definitely had stress headaches. I have definitely had, other issues with my head and my face because of stress. Like I mentioned, a tick in my eye a few minutes ago. But it goes on. Stress can lead to heart disease. Oh my gosh. So not only can genetics put us at a predisposition to heart disease, but the more stress we have in our lives can just accelerate the onset of that heart disease, but also increase the probability that we would have it. It also can cause digestive problems. I think most of us have probably experienced at one point or another where we couldn't eat because we were so stressed out, or where we had problems with acid or indigestion or acid reflux or something of that nature because of the stress in our lives. Definitely people get ulcers because of the stress in their life, right? So there's all these digestive problems that can happen because of stress. There's also increased cholesterol, and there's sleep problems. Oh my gosh, sleep problems. How many of us stay awake at night because of the stress in our life? Or we wake up in the middle of the night and have a hard time going back to sleep because we just started thinking about, oh my gosh, where am I going to pay this bill? Or, oh my gosh, how am I going to get past this problem at work? Or, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this issue with my kids or with my spouse or whatever have you? So we have these problems. And then The sleep deprivation caused by stress causes other issues that we're not even going to talk about tonight. So you start seeing how this cascades. Increased cholesterol, and that goes right in hand with heart disease. Increased weight. Oh my gosh, cholesterol, weight. I mean, all of this is starting to link together and form a picture, right? I hope it is for you. But not only can it cause increased weight, it can make it challenging to drop that weight. So for me, over the last 11 years or so, well, the last year I had made some changes, but for the previous 10 years, I had been working 2 jobs, a full-time job and a part-time job. The first 3 or 4 years of that, I was also in school full-time, as well as getting married and having my first child, and then a few years later, having my second child. And talk about stress in life. I mean, I love my wife. Getting married was the best thing I ever did. Having kids is the best thing we've done together. But you add all of this together and it starts increasing stress. I had gained weight, and I continued to put on a little bit of weight here and there until the point where I was able to reduce the stress in my life. And I was able to start losing some of that weight. Now, I'm still not where I need to be or where I'd like to be. However, that weight has come down for me. And part of that is because the stress in my life has reduced. I've learned how to deal with it a little bit better and how to reduce it. But how about this? I think a lot of us also deal with this one: memory and concentration impairment. So when we have stress, our mind is off thinking about whatever's causing us that stress. And it makes sense that it's so, because stress, the way that our body handles stress, again, was originally designed to deal with immediate threats, immediate instigators or aggressors. And so when our body is experiencing stress, it's not going to let our mind concentrate on what we want to concentrate on. It's going to concentrate on what it perceives to be that threat and how to handle that threat. That's why we oftentimes have that memory and concentration impairment. But we go back to some of the systems that are shut down. So our memory isn't as attuned as it should be when we have high levels of stress. Our concentration isn't as attuned as it should be when we have high levels of stress, because we have the adrenaline, we have the norepinephrine, and we have the cortisol coursing through our system, causing us to focus on the problem as opposed to the other things in life that we really want to be focusing on. So this starts to make sense. And then last, we see stress being linked to mental disorders. So the longer you deal with stress, the more likely it is that you're going to deal with mental disorders like anxiety and depression, potentially bipolar. I mean, it's been linked to so many different mental disorders. It's just a matter of which one is it that maybe your biology is ready for. And so we look at the effects of chronic stress and we start going, oh my gosh, we really have to find a way of figuring out how do we reduce the stress in our life. And you know what? I'm really happy to say that there are ways to reduce that stress in your life. So real quick story. So for me, let's take a trip back to February of this year. So it's 2016 right now. And in February, I ended up in the hospital because of the amount of stress that I was under. And I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks or so. And during that time, I started really becoming aware of how much stress I had in my life, which I really wasn't fully aware of. I was kind of in denial of that, and how important it was for me to deal with this. And not just deal with this, kind of set it aside and just ignore it, but actually really learn how to deal with stress. And I think a lot of us are in the boat where we just try and stuff it. We stuff it down, we ignore it, we pretend it's not there, oh, the stress, I can just muscle through it. And when in reality, we can't. Our bodies, because we have a chemical reaction to stress, we can't just ignore it no matter how hard we try. And so we have to find ways to work with our bodies to reduce the stress, to be able to give our bodies some relief from this fight or flight response that we're constantly experiencing. And so that's what I want to talk about for just a few minutes, a little bit of what I've learned about how to reduce the stress. So the first thing, if you are able to change the stressful circumstances. Now, most of us are going to laugh at this one, right? Because we think, okay, I can't, quit my job. I can't change most of the relationships in my life. And so the stress is going to be there. You can work toward resolution in some of these areas, but you can't just immediately change it. But if you can, do it. So for instance, if you have friends that you hang out with frequently, and I worked as a youth pastor for 10 years, so I'm used to talking to teenagers and telling them, hey, choose your friends wisely, choose your friends wisely. But I think as adults, we don't oftentimes listen to that advice very well. We can choose who our friends are going to be. We can choose how much exposure we're going to have to those friends and what kind of impact they're going to have in our lives. And so if you have friendships or relationships with people that are causing you high levels of stress, you might want to look at that relationship and make a decision. Is this particular relationship worth it? And is there anything that I can do to change the nature of this relationship? And maybe it's working with the person you're in that relationship with to change the nature. But if you can, change the stressful circumstances. But most of us are not in a situation where we can, so we have to learn some other things. So there's some things we can obviously do, like eat more healthy. And there are lots of people who eat very healthy who still experience high levels of stress. When we talk about eat more healthy, part of what we're talking about is getting rid of some of the processed foods, definitely fried foods. Caffeine can be really, really bad for stress, in part because caffeine, no matter what your modality of taking caffeine, again, increases your blood pressure, can increase your blood sugar, can also dehydrate you, as well as increase your pulse. So it does a lot of the same stuff to the system that adrenaline does and that cortisol does. And so we just have to be really careful when we're under stress, how much caffeine we're also consuming, because that can just accelerate the effects of stress and on the body. So choose wisely what you're going to eat. And by the way, when we talk about like processed foods and fried foods, I am very guilty. I eat those things. I wish I could be one of the people who told you, hey, I never go to McDonald's. I can't. I'm working toward that. But as much as you can, eat more healthy, because the more we put real food into our bodies, the more our body is going to work the way it is supposed to. And also these highly processed foods add to the free radicals in our system. And so we want to be very careful of what we're putting in there and what it's doing to our body. So definitely eat more healthy if you can. But then also find ways to relax. And I don't know about you, but for me, relaxing was actually very, very difficult. When I was in the hospital, I learned a lot of relaxation techniques and tried a lot of things I hadn't done before. And for me, it was very uncomfortable at first because I was so used to being in a very tense and stressed state all the time. It was actually very uncomfortable and a little bit nerve-wracking for me to try to relax. So this may take a little bit of practice, but definitely do it. So yoga, practicing mindfulness, which just means being present in the moment, not worrying about the past, not thinking about the future, but just being right here, right now. And if you've got kids, or if you've got any other relationship that you really care about, this mindfulness piece, this being present right here, right now, is so extremely important. So do yourself a favor, do the people that you're in a relationship a favor, exercise this one. But then also massage, getting massages. It can be really helpful with stress. Definitely working out some of the stress that hides in your muscles can be really helpful. And then meditation. And, as a Christian, I had a real problem with meditation until I kind of understood it. So when we think about meditation, what I think about and what I practice is simply, it's a way of becoming more mindful, being present in the here and now, but also being very conscious of my body. So when I meditate, oftentimes I have some guided meditation. So just to help me become more mindful, right? So thinking about something very specific that has nothing to do with the stress in my life, thinking about something calming and peaceful that can help me relax. And then also just concentrating on your breathing. Man, just concentrating on your breathing and how quick you're breathing, as well as how deeply you're breathing. Talk about a way to relax. That is really, really important. By the way, I should have put this on here. Breathe is a great way to relax. A lot of times when we are under stress, we don't breathe as well. Our respiration increases in terms of our respiratory rate. So we're actually not getting as much air as we need to. So as you relax, make sure you breathe. Even if you're not relaxing, just remind yourself occasionally, take that deep breath and enjoy it, and then exhale all the negativity out. A lot of times just focusing on being positive and getting rid of the negativity in life can help reduce stress a little bit. So that can definitely help. Here's one that I also struggled with. Take time for hobbies. You know, a lot of us are working multiple jobs, or we have a job that consumes 70, 80, 90 hours a week. And it can be very difficult to have hobbies. Somebody asked me, you know, when I was in the hospital, what do you do for fun? I said, what do you mean, what do I do? I'm a father. I work full time. That is my fun, right? But it's not, and it shouldn't be. All of us need something recreational to do. So whether it's fishing or something crafty or writing or exercising or whatever that is, but have a hobby that you can engage in that is going to help provide stress. I'll tell you what, if you haven't picked up a coloring book in years, there are some phenomenal coloring books at places like Hobby Lobby and Michael's and Joann's. I mean, you can even find them at Walmart, but they are designed for adults, so they're much more intricate. But man, they're actually kind of fun to sit down and color when you're under stress, as long as you can dedicate the time to it. And when I say dedicate, 10, 15, 20 minutes even, right? Which is where you can focus on that and not worry about anything else. That's relaxing. And you know, maybe for you it's something else. You know, for me, also playing music. I play guitar, I write music occasionally. That can be a great way of relaxing. So whatever it is, just make sure that you have something and you're taking the time to do it. Because if you're not, it's definitely not gonna benefit you. The next thing is, you know, you want to rid your body of those free radicals. Really important to do. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute, how to actually rid the body of free radicals. But I don't know about you, I do not look forward to getting older and having cancer. In fact, my mindset is I'm going to be 120 is my goal, and I will never have had cancer. And boy, I'm doing everything I can to achieve that. Part of that is supporting our bodies the way that we're supposed to. Now, you know, the first 35 years of my life, I definitely screwed it up. I made a lot of bad choices as a child and a young adult that I shouldn't have, that are going to impact my health. So, you know, but I'm doing things now and making decisions now to try to not have that. And I hope that you are too, which is part of why you're here and joining me tonight. And the last thing that you can do is support a healthy endocrine system. If your endocrine system isn't working properly, then your response to stress is going to be exaggerated. It's going to be worse than what it should be. And what you can do is, by supporting a healthy endocrine system, you're helping the different components, the different glands and parts of your brain and all those things to work properly together, to communicate properly, to release the right hormones at the right time, including not just the stress hormones, but also the hormones like dopamine and like serotonin. You know, serotonin is great for sleeping. And if you don't have that, you have a hard time sleeping. Dopamine is the happy hormone, right? It's what helps us experience pleasure. And what happens is when our bodies are filled with cortisol, then the receptors that would normally accept dopamine are actually accepting cortisol. So if they're all stuffed full of cortisol, we can't receive the dopamine that may even be floating around in our bodies. And so it's this is part of why it's important to support that healthy endocrine system. So let's shift focus for a minute. So we've talked for the last, half hour or so about what stress is, where it originated from, how it impacts our bodies, and some things that you can do to support it. What I'd like to do now is shift and talk with you about some of the things that you can do to help rid your body of the free radicals and help support your endocrine system. Now, if you're watching this, you probably already know my wife and I, we are distributors with Young Living Essential Oils. We love their products. And their products are completely plant-based. They're completely pure. And so they are some of the best products that you can get on the market right now for essential oils and oil-infused products. And part of what they do for the system is actually helping to reduce stress. And so I want to talk with you about some of the products that they have and just help you understand, here's what some of these products can do. So the first one is an amazing juice. It's called Ningxia Red. Ningxia Red has many, many things in it. Part of what it has is the Ningxia wolfberry, which comes from the Ningxia province of China. And so what the Ningxia wolfberry does, the reason why this is so important is because that particular berry is very high in antioxidants. It's also got the proper balance of all the minerals you need in order to digest and assimilate all the different minerals. Because all the minerals, if you take calcium but you don't take magnesium, you're not going to absorb that calcium properly, and it goes down the line, and there's a mineral to absorb that, mineral to absorb that, and it just keeps going. The Ningxia wolfberry has those minerals in it, so it's very good for your health. But more so than that is it is very, very good for antioxidation. And what that is that's really ridding your body of the free radicals. So consuming the Ningxia Red, this amazing juice, it tastes great. You're going to love it. Stick it in the fridge. I've had to slow down because my wife and I, we would drink this, if we could. It is not a juice to drink like apple juice. Okay. It is a dietary supplement, just so you know. The recommended dosage of this is about 2 ounces a day. Between 2 and 4, 2 is about recommended. If you really feel like you need higher antioxidation, go ahead and drink 4, maybe 6 ounces. But all of the studies that I have read and all of the research that I have read about this suggests that there's really not additional benefit to having more than the 2 ounces per day. And there's several ways that you can take this. One way you can take it, just take a shot, add some additional oils to it that might be good for you. In fact, I tried a blend the other day that was quite interesting. It had what did it have in it? It had lime, and it had lemon, and it had peppermint and cinnamon bark and copaiba. And that was a very, very interesting mix. Left my lips a little bit tingly for a little while. But you can just add some oils to it if you want, either for taste or also for their dietary properties. That's one way to do it. Another way that a lot of people do is they'll take a very large water bottle or just a standard water bottle, and they'll mix the Ningxia Red in with their water, and they'll drink that throughout the day. So instead of just getting a hyper shot of it, when you down 2 ounces really quickly, what they're doing is they're spreading out that benefit throughout the day. So that sometimes helps level the amount of energy that you're getting as a result of the Ningxia Red. So if you've never tried Ningxia Red, oh my gosh, you've got to try this stuff. If you received a premium starter kit from Young Living, there are 2 sample packets of Ningxia Red in the box. If you haven't done anything with those sample packets, get them now, go put them in the refrigerator, and drink one of them tomorrow morning. You are going to love it, and your body is going to love it. Almost everybody I talk to when we start talking about health and wellness, and we start talking about what is it that they're trying to achieve from their wellness perspective, almost everybody I talk to, one of the core components is that Ningxia Red, because it just does so much for the system. So I can't tell you enough how important this particular juice is, but it's not the only one. So if you're a woman, these next 2 are specifically for you. Now, I've not seen anything about whether these are good for men or not, but they are designed specifically for women. So PD8020 is one of them. This one has progenolone and DHEA in it, which both are very important to the female reproductive system as well as the female endocrine system, your hormones. Nothing, I don't think, bad will happen for guys if we have it. But again, this was specifically created for women. So we may not get the same benefit as men that the women might get. But this one is really good. And part of why I put this one in here is because it maximizes internal health, but it also supports a healthy endocrine system, which is part of what the DHEA does. So that's one of them. The other one that's specifically for women is Cortistop. And so Cortistop, again, is designed to really help with the endocrine system by helping to reduce the stress and helping to deal with the cortisol. and then balance the hormones that are in your system. So again, why this was for the women and not the men, I don't know. But that's the way that this one was designed. So men, you can always try it, see what happens. But again, it was formulated specifically for women and for their body chemistries. So definitely recommend those two. But then we get into a couple of oils. So one oil that I love to carry with me is Stress Away. Stress Away is a very interesting oil in that it has a blend that is unique to Young Living. It has vanilla and lime. And it has a bunch of other oils in it as well. But the vanilla and lime is oftentimes what people smell most when they smell the Stress Away. So you can open a bottle of Stress Away in a store or in a restaurant, people start turning around, you put a little bit on the back of your neck and it just kind of stays with you. I met with somebody the other day and we put some Stress Away on her, and about 45 minutes later or so, she was leaving. She says, okay, now how do I take this off? Because it's overpowering my perfume. So it definitely hangs around, which is a good thing. But part of what Stress Away does is, man, it just helps you to relax a little bit. It doesn't take away the stressors in life. It reshapes how the body's chemistry is responding to those stressors. So instead of being in that fight or flight mode, it helps the body to relax a little bit, to deal with the cortisol that was released in the system, and to stop reacting without your full body functioning, and kick that whole system back in to be able to respond the way that we need to. So it's a very good oil, Stress Away is. Endoflex is another really good oil. Now, Endoflex is good for both women and for men. And so Endoflex is, again, it's a blend. It's proprietary to Young Living, and it is really good to help support the endocrine system. That is its whole purpose and why it was formulated. So if you are looking and you're saying, gosh, I think my hormones need a little bit of balancing, whether it's adrenaline or, you've got cortisol overload, or, one of the other hormones. We have many more hormones than that impact our body on a daily basis. Just to make it work properly, Endoflex can be a great oil for you. I'd strongly recommend that one. And then finally is Cedar Wood. Cedar Wood, again, can be really, really good for helping to balance the endocrine system. But part of why it's good for that is because Cedar Wood also helps support healthy sleep patterns. So in our home, we use Cedar Wood on our children every night to help them go to sleep. It's got a nice kind of woodsy aroma to it. It's also a little bit sweet, depending on how you smell it. But you just put it on, and it just, again, helps that body relax and goes right to sleep. I was talking with another friend the other day, and we were talking about some stuff that is going on in their life, and I said, you might want to try this, because they said that they were just having a hard time getting their brain to shut off, and that's very understandable. A lot of us experience that. And so the cedarwood, part of what that particular oil does is it helps that brain shut off. So instead of continuing cycling around the stressors of the day, it helps to release those and to relax the body. And that's part of why it's really good for supporting healthy sleep. But again, as we know, reduced sleep is part of the side effects of high stress. And so if we can do something to increase our sleep and to get better sleep, then it increases our ability to handle that stress more effectively. So, and there are many other Young Living products that I could talk about that would help deal with stress. We didn't talk about lavender. We didn't talk about peppermint. There, like I said, there are many other oils that we could talk about, but these are the ones that I wanted to bring out and talk very impactfully about, and let you know that, if nothing else, try these. Definitely, if you have the premium starter kit, if that's all you've got, pull out your lavender, put that on. Lavender is incredibly relaxing. Smell it, stick it on the back of your neck, rub it across your forehead. It does many other great things as well, but oh my gosh, it is incredibly relaxing. Peppermint can help hone the mind and relax as well a little bit. If you have it, it doesn't come in the starter kit, but Peace and Calming is another one that can have a great impact. So there's all of these oils that we have available to us because Young Living is concerned about our health, and they're looking to say, okay, what can we do to help people have the best life possible and experience the least amount of stress possible as part of that life. And so if you're not experiencing what a Young Living lifestyle looks like, man, I want to invite you to come join us, because it is amazing. I have experienced so much less stress in the last, definitely in the last 3 months than I have in years prior. But it started really 2 years ago when we got involved with Young Living, when we got our first starter kit and started using the oils. And it's just, kind of come down a little bit gradually since then. And now I'm to a point where it's like, man, people talk about stress. I'm going, hey, yeah, there's a little bit of stress in life, but I'm doing pretty good. I can't tell you the last time I had that fight or flight reaction in my body, because I'm working to balance my system and to provide what it needs so that I don't have all these stressors in my life, that I can relax and deal with life as it comes. So not quite the, the, hey, what's going on, kind of hippie lifestyle that I've seen other people have, but, definitely, man, it's great not having the amount of stress that you used to have. So definitely would invite you to come and experience that. So if you have not gotten oils yet from Young Living, if you need to get your starter kit and get going on this, or you need to get some of these oils and supplements that we talked about today, I'd be happy to talk with you. Give my wife Kim and I a call. We'd love to talk you through how to get set up. We can talk about what the costs are, how to help pay for those costs, and what this really looks like in terms of having a Young Living lifestyle. So you can reach us. The phone number's there on your screen, 810-207-5115. You can also check us out on our website, oilyourhealth.com. And lastly, I want to invite you back. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing classes on the first and third Tuesdays every month. We're going to be doing these webinars, and so I'd love to have you come back. The next one we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about oils that go beyond the kit. So we're not going to talk about systems or anything like that. We're just going to talk about some of the products that we love using. And we're going to actually talk about 20 different products that night, maybe a little bit more than that, and a little bit about what they do. So we definitely encourage you to come back and join us for that. So that'll be at 8:30 on July the 5th. I know right after the July 4th weekend, but I'll be here. Hope you'll join me. Make sure you register your seat. I do have limited capacity in these webinars, and once it's full, it's full. So go to that website, oilyourhealth.com/webinars, and make sure you register for the class. And then we've got a few more classes that are already on that page that you can see what their topics are and get registered for that as well. So, well, I thank you for joining us tonight. It is right about time for us to wrap up. So we're going to go ahead and call it an evening. I do wish you much prosperity, a lot of wellness, purpose, and abundance in your life. And I look forward to seeing you on the next class. Have a great night.